And what do you know that every scout and coach on earth does not?
I have no idea what I'm doing, but I know I'm doing it really, really well.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Steelers Sanctuary Draft Spotlight. I'm Dave Ribeiro with Bob Quinn, and we have a special guest today. This is Jim Wickens from the Draft Spotlight website. He's got his own draft simulator. Jim, you want to go into a little bit of what your website's about and how you started?
Sure. So I am part of Draft Professor. We're a combination of several things. So first, we're a podcast network. So we have about 52 podcasters that put out daily content on the draft. We also have a draft simulator, which I know we're going to be talking about here in a few minutes. It is the only interactive fan-controlled mock draft simulator. So that means whoever the fans want their team to pick, if you are the fanatic that I'm looking for, you can make Pittsburgh draft whoever you want it to draft. And every other team is now mock drafting against your opinion of what the Steelers need to do. So
it's a really awesome simulator. I was playing with it this morning and this afternoon. You guys got to check it out. It's a really fun thing and it's different from the other simulators that you use. So I think our fans will really enjoy that. Let's get into some draft talk. Where do you want to start? Quarterbacks? Let's talk quarterbacks. Bob and I, we talked about this on pre stuff. We disagree vehemently on some of the quarterbacks. There was a rumor last week, about possibly Jalen Milroe becoming the Steelers' first round pick. Where do you see Jalen Milroe going in your simulator, and how do you feel about Jalen Milroe?
So I think Jalen Milroe is going to be a Pittsburgh Steeler.
Oh.
That's like my crystal ball.
I think David's not here.
My crystal ball says Pittsburgh is drafting Milroe. One of the draft professors is a Steeler fan. As we were talking pre-show, Mike Tomlin and Omar Khan were at the pro day, right? Which is one of the signs that Pittsburgh is interested in a player that's at that pro day, right?
Absolutely.
So all signs point to Milroe. I think Milroe, he might go a little bit before the Pittsburgh Steelers pick. I don't see him dropping far in round 2, though. It's a quarterback hungry league. You have to take a chance. You're better off swinging and missing than not swinging. You have to try. That's just the way football goes. You have to try until you find him. And I know that's not what people want to hear. I don't necessarily think highly of Jalen Milroe's NFL future, but you still have to try.
Yeah, when we were talking about it on the podcast on Thursday, I think there is interest. I agree with you. I think there is interest. First round is a little high, but they don't have a second round pick. So if they want Jalen Milroe, it's first round or bust. And the thing is, how bad do they want Jalen Milroe? And it feels like a reach at 21. It does, but Tomlin's strange with when he likes somebody. Chances are they're going to get him. So I'm very conflicted with this pick.
Well, and it's also difficult to go into a draft with a glaring need at a position, right? So to the best of my knowledge, Mason Rudolph is the only QB that Pittsburgh has under contract, right?
We're on Aaron Rodgers' watch, buddy. We've been on Aaron Rodgers' watch for, almost 50 days now we were talking about.
But
so, yeah.
If your choices are Milroe or Rodgers, to me, the choice is Milroe, and I don't even know that that's close.
For 1 year, I'd take Rodgers. Long term, I'm super intrigued by Milroe. The athleticism. I read he's a big time leader in the clubhouse. That he's well liked by everybody at Alabama. The consistency is an issue, right, Bob? It's scary.
His short and intermediate passing is really very inconsistent. And bear in mind that in a watered down SEC this year, which is one of the few years you'll ever be able to say that, he only threw 16 touchdown passes. And you take a guy who I don't like Jackson Dart particularly either, but you compare the two, the talent at Alabama is at least equal. And Trey Amos is a very good player, but he's Anthony Richardson 2.0 to me. I mean, he throws a nice deep ball. He runs fast. You're going to watch him, and you're going to just be utterly frustrated with his game, I think, at the pro level. I really can't see him as a first-round pick. I think it would be a massive overreach. If they got him in the third, I'd be okay with it. Wouldn't be my first choice, but I'd be okay with it because it's easy to move off of him if he comes in. I mean, I have nightmares of Cordell Stewart in the 90s. Yeah, there were flashes. There were times where you're like, oh, my God, if this guy could ever just put it all together. And I feel like Milroe, I'm incredibly concerned about the magically growing hands. I don't know how you 8 and 5 and then magically go to 9 and 3/4. That smacks of craziness.
So I think, and obviously I have the luxury of being a Bills fan when it comes to discussing quarterbacks, right?
Yeah, you got a good one over there.
It's a luxury.
You got a good one.
Right? Yep. Okay. So to me, if you're Pittsburgh, you have to have a plan at quarterback. And to me, there's one of two plans. The plan is either Milroe or Dart, right? But your plan is either that, or you have to say, we're going to get a quarterback in 2026. And I can tell you it's a loaded QB class next year.
Yep.
There's
talked about that a lot.
Two QBs that if they were to come out this year, if Nussmeier and Alar were in this QB class, neither would get out of the top 10.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so then what do you have to do to get those guys next year? Because I'm not a fan of tanking. So then you have to pull the ultimate, quick rebuild trigger, which means Pittsburgh, trade back out of round 1 and get a round 1 next year. Take George Pickens, offload him for a second-round pick, find somebody else on the roster that you could trade for a third-round pick. So go into next year's draft with 2 firsts, 2 seconds, 2 thirds. And I guarantee you're going to be able to get whatever quarterback you want if you throw all 6 of those picks at a team. And keep in mind, I'm giving you – that's what Brandon Beane did. That's how Buffalo got Josh Allen.
Yeah, yep.
Does anybody remember what Buffalo did the year before they drafted Josh Allen?
Was it
Bushman? Enlighten us. What did they do?
We made the playoffs.
Oh, that's the Jacksonville year. That's right. You guys lost to Jacksonville in the first round.
We got destroyed in the playoffs. It was Tyrod Taylor did not have a good year, but we still made the playoffs. Okay. And I see Pittsburgh is like you are that team. You are that 100%. Team where you have a relatively good roster built. I mean, obviously every team has holes and you have needs, but you're close to a quarterback away. So you want to offload assets that you have to make sure that you can secure the guy you want next year. And the trade up to get Josh Allen, Buffalo traded up in round 1. Then we traded that pick plus 2 seconds to go get Josh Allen. So I think
that's right. They traded up twice.
12 to 7. Right. So we traded up to get Cincinnati's 12 before the draft.
That's right.
Then we traded pick 12 in 2 seconds, and we were able to move up to the 7th overall pick to get Josh Allen.
I had completely forgotten about that. And I bring that up a lot on the podcast, how teams like Kansas City and Buffalo traded up. They were okay. They were borderline playoff teams, and they had to trade a bunch of assets to get – and that's what you got to do because Mike Tomlin is not a tanking guy. It's never going to happen when Mike Tomlin's the head coach here. He's just not going to go for it. So this team's always going to be on the cusp of the playoffs or in the playoffs every season. It's going to take a big trade, or we get lucky with a later guy like a Dart or a Milroe. And one of those guys by some miracle turns into a franchise quarterback. I want to talk a little bit about Jackson Dart because Bob doesn't like – Bob, you want to do something?
Actually, I just have one quick question to see what Jim thinks of this. So I like your scenario here because we've got 4 thirds already next year.
Potentially 4 thirds, yeah, potentially.
Yeah, and then theoretically, and I think it was TJ who put in the chat about trading Pickens for a 2. We get a 3rd for Pickens if he walks. So, yes, if somebody would give him a 2 or a 1, I don't think they will. But if they do, yes, of course, we're on record saying, yeah, you'd almost have to do it. But what do you think about the idea of we have a way to get an extra number 1, maybe even 2 extra number 1s, and that's trade TJ Watt? What are your thoughts on that?
If that's the only way, then you do it, and you don't even blink, and you don't even think twice. I think that Pittsburgh has a way to get the second one without unloading Watt. So, does anybody know who had the original pick for Patrick Mahomes?
I just read this the other day, and I can't remember.
Buffalo?
That's right. It was Buffalo. That's right.
Yeah.
That's how Buffalo got 2 number 1s the next year. We traded back with Kansas City. We got their 1. We went into the draft with 2 number 1s. The problem was they were both playoff number 1s because Buffalo and Kansas City made the playoffs the previous year. So we had to trade one of those number 1s and Cordy Glenn to Cincinnati so that we moved up to get their 1. We still had 2 1s, but it was like, again, it's the Kansas City 1, right? Does that really count?
It's almost
They were a playoff team. So I would just say, can Pittsburgh, from where they are at 20 or 21?
21, yep.
So can Pittsburgh at 21 trade like with New England in round 2, trade back to New England's spot and get New England's number 1 next year? Now, I don't think New England's going to give up a number 1. No. I think New England can make the playoffs next year.
Yeah.
But I don't know that that's a done deal. Right? Like, it's not like think of like Houston, right? When Houston traded up for Will Anderson, right? They gave up their future year number 1. And I was like, you don't give up like a top 10 or a top 15 pick to trade up to get a guy. And Houston made the playoffs, and they made me look like a fool.
Yeah.
Because they knew how good the roster was. Like, look for the teams that are at the front of round 2 that need an offensive tackle. So where Pittsburgh picks is right before the run on offensive tackles is likely to occur. So right after Pittsburgh, Houston, I think, is at 24.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds right.
They need a tackle.
I think Minnesota's 24, but they're right there. Matter of fact, I'll look that up while we're talking.
Okay, so Houston is probably 26 then. You're right. Minnesota's 24. Houston is basically, if you need an offensive tackle, you need to get in front of Houston.
Yep.
That's kind of where I'm coming from. We can pretty much telegraph certain teams' picks. Like right now, if you put a gun to my head, I could probably identify one of 2 positions that Minnesota's drafting, and I could probably list you the 5 players at those 2 positions. Minnesota's going to be a defensive back. I just don't know if it's going to be safety or corner.
And Somber looked it up for us. And
Houston, and they don't have a second-round pick, very similar to Pittsburgh. So Minnesota's got to get their DB. But then right after that, there's going to be a run of teams that are going to need an offensive tackle, which include Houston. It will include Washington. It would not surprise me if Kansas City went line. It would not surprise me if the Eagles went line. So there's a group of teams there that need a tackle, but there's only 5 tackles worth drafting in the top 40. But there's about 11 teams that need them.
So in that scenario, let's say Josh Simmons falls, which I saw a mock having the Steelers take him, and I was like, okay, you really are just exposing yourself. There's no way they're taking tackle 3 years in a row in the first round.
Yeah.
But if Josh Simmons did fall to the Steelers, then theoretically in your scenario, you trade back with Houston and maybe pick up,
right.
That makes
maybe
sense.
even this year's second and next year's first under your scenario, because now you're packaging 2 firsts to move up to get an Arch Manning or an Ialeva or somebody like that.
Right.
We've talked about the scenario a lot, and the one that I see that's the Steelers have most to gain is maybe somebody who doesn't draft a quarterback in the top 10 and Dart starts to fall and he's there at 21, maybe one of those teams like the Giants or New Orleans wants to get in and get Dart before he's snatched up. That could probably, because quarterback is always king, so that could probably bring them the most back. Would you think, like, the most draft picks back in return for a trade back? That's the thing I'm secretly hoping for. I like Dart, and I wouldn't mind them drafting Dart, but I also wouldn't mind him being there at 21 and they're getting a couple, a first and a second and something down the line where they can package in 26 to get a quote. We talk about that a lot.
And then from the perspective of a guy like Dart, a guy like Milroe, long term, yeah, they could maybe. I don't think, but maybe. There's maybe with them. But the problem is you got Arthur Smith and the Steelers coaching staff trying to develop guys. I think if Dart went to McVay or went to Shanahan, in 2 or 3 years, he could turn out to be really good. Same thing with Milroe. I just don't think, especially with the franchise history, not just the current regime of not being able to develop a quarterback, I just think taking guys who are going to need work on their game is the wrong move, because it's going to be like Pickett. We're going to throw him on the field way too soon. He's going to be average at best, and everybody's going to say he's terrible. Then maybe 3 years down the line, 5 years down the line, he turns into Geno Smith.
Well, yes, I think Milroe is a better fit for what Arthur Smith wants to do. I think he'd have a better chance. I think, to me, I agree with you on Jackson Dart. He'd be better with a McVay, somewhere along that lines. But what about Shedeur Sanders? Have you seen at all him falling that far to 21? I've heard people talk about it. I haven't seen it in any mock drafts. No one's putting pen to paper, but I have heard it in podcasts and stuff. He could fall. What do you think about that?
I think people are putting things up for clickbait.
Yeah.
I mean, okay. So the question is, when you draft somebody, what's your impression of what a first-round draft pick is? Are you drafting a starter or are you drafting an all-pro? Shedeur Sanders, you're drafting Andy Dalton.
Dalton had a couple of good years, though, for the Bengals.
And I'm going to say Andy Dalton has had a really good NFL career. And he has been starter in multiple places, which included Carolina and Cincinnati. I think he filled in for Dallas one year as a starter.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a legitimate NFL quarterback. You're going to be able to roster Shedeur Sanders and start him. He played behind a horrendous offensive line and still put up decent numbers. You're getting a good quarterback with Shedeur. But I don't think anybody is claiming he's going to be an all-pro quarterback. And that's the difference.
Yeah. Right?
With this draft is a really good draft as long as you don't want to draft an all-pro.
Yes.
It's
deep, not great.
We
exactly.
Kind of summed it up like we've talked a lot about the wide receivers. This is a wide receiver 2 draft. One or two of these guys may end up being a number 1, but this is really a wide receiver 2 draft.
Oh, actually, that's a pretty good take. So on a podcast I was on maybe a week or so ago, one of the guests said, well, if you draft Teteroa McMillan, he's one of the 32 best wide receivers in the league. And I said, that's actually a pretty good take, because you're basically, to your point, Bob, you're drafting a wide receiver 2.
Yeah.
And that's a starting player that's going to get 70% of your snaps. Mm-hmm. It's okay to draft him. Just don't draft him to expect to be Malik Neighbors, which is a game-changing wide receiver. Right? You have to roll your coverage to take Malik Neighbors out of the game, and he still catches 7 passes a game. And I want to point out that he had a Giants quarterback throwing to him, and he still was catching 7 passes a game.
Yes.
Right? That's Malik Neighbors, right? That's probably a top 15 NFL receiver. But the drop-off from top 15 to top 32 is huge. Because if everybody here listed the top 32 receivers in the league, we're probably going to have 64 names in the top 32. Right? Because we're not going to agree on who those guys are. Right? So from that standpoint, pretty much this entire draft, especially on the offensive side, It's not going to help your fantasy football team. This is not a fantasy football draft. But if you need linemen or a running back, this is a really good draft for you. This is a really good draft for you. And if you need any position on defense, it's a really good draft for you. You just have to know how to sequence the picks to get the right guys.
Right.
That's a good way to transition to – okay, Bob.
I was going to say the running back. Yeah, I think you were going to transition to our running back debate.
Yeah, the running back to me probably represents the best value for the Steelers when it comes to 21. If Omarion Hampton is still there, because then you've got Omarion Hampton, Trevion Henderson, Judkins, who are maybe borderline first, but I still think those guys give you the best impact for your pick at 21. I don't know how you feel about, but the running back class to me is where the value is in this draft because it's so deep and there's so many good players that you can really get a good player at 21 at the running back position.
So, yeah, I mean, Omarion Hampton is worth the 21st overall pick.
Yeah, we're big fans of him here. Big fans.
No doubt. The way I would see it is that if running back is the plan, I would prefer to trade back and do the running back in round 2.
Yeah.
And I think the issue is, what is the incremental difference between Omarion Hampton and Damon Martinez? Like, what's your delta there? Like, do we think that that's 2 touchdowns a season? Like, go ahead, Bob.
I think it's
I'm a
more
Damian
than that,
Martinez fan, and I've advocated for picking him in the 4th. Sorry, Dave.
Okay.
But I think that there is enough of a gap between Hampton and Martinez, who I do think you can get in the 4th round, that it would be potentially worth it for the Steelers. But I love the take of, I think he's there 27 to 35. And if you can move off 21 to get him there, I think then it becomes a very, very good value.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Quishon Judkins too. I wouldn't take him at 21. I would trade back in his scenario, but I think he's right up there with the top guys in this draft. So the running back position's pretty loaded this year. I like DJ Giddens later on. There's a lot of good running backs in this draft.
Yeah, Dylan Sampson.
I think the issue is you don't want to pass up drafting the Hall of Fame running back. So I see the comment there from the chat. So if you're the GM that passed over the Hall of Fame running back, that may not always look good. But at the same time, I'm willing to take, like at running back, I'm willing to take my chances. So for as good as everybody says Ashton Genty is, I would be anti-running back in the top 10. If your team is picking in the top 10, you've got problems.
Yes.
Running back should not be the top problem that you solve. Right. That's the Jim Wickens theory of roster building, right? Like if you're taking a running back in round 1, you should be a playoff team, right? So Pittsburgh was a playoff team. Taking a running back in round 1 is okay. But if I have to choose between Milroe and Genty, I'm sorry, I'm taking Milroe. Oof. Like you have to select the quarterback first.
If you believe in Milroe,
without a quarterback, you're not a team. I'm sorry, and we don't want that to be Mason Rudolph.
No,
like the draft professor group chat was lighting up when the Steelers extended Mason or re-signed Mason Rudolph.
Yeah,
like okay, Pittsburgh's not going QB in round 1 anymore, are they?
Well,
like we were having some fun with it.
Half of the Steelers fan base thinks Mason was screwed, and he's really a first-round talent. If only he had a chance, ignoring all the chances he's actually had. And then the other half is like, you know what? At least if we put him in this year, we never have to hear from these fucking people again about how Mason got screwed.
Yeah, so I'm a huge fan of you have to build a room. And that's every team's off season right now. You're focused on getting your best 90 guys. The goal is to get 90. You need 3 quarterbacks in the room. Maybe you need 4, right? You need 6 running backs in the room. You need 15 offensive linemen. You probably need, somewhere between 12 and 16 defensive linemen, et cetera, right? But you need to build each room. Your goal is Obviously you have to have 53 guys that fit underneath the salary cap, but it's more important to make sure your rooms in training camp are competitive, right? Because if you're evaluating a defensive lineman and he keeps blowing up an undrafted free agent offensive lineman, you didn't learn anything, right? Because you were going to cut that offensive lineman anyway. So from my standpoint, if you don't have the right quarterback room, that's where the conversation starts and stops. I'd like to have Ashton Genty, but if it's Genty or Milrow, I'm going Milrow. If it's Genty or Dart, I'm still going Dart. And you have to build a team, and you have to start at the quarterback room. I don't care how good the other players are. I don't care if it's TJ Watt or anybody else. You can win a Super Bowl with Dak Prescott and Micah Parsons, and I think we all agree that Micah Parsons is the better player. But you need a player at Dak Prescott's level. And I don't think Dak Prescott is a top 10 NFL quarterback, but he's closer to 10 than he is 20. He's there, and that's what you need. You need somebody who can come in and play at like a Dak Prescott level.
Yeah, and I don't even know if Mason Rudolph is capable of that, to be honest.
And that's why they're patiently waiting for Pat McAfee's show on April 9th to announce Aaron Rodgers as the quarterback.
I mean, when you first brought that up, and Bob and I had this conversation like a month ago, and he said, it's going to be well into April before Aaron Rodgers signs. And I'm like, you're crazy. You're crazy. And here we are, April 1st, right around the corner, and he still hasn't signed. So,
well, and I think some of this, though, is I think Rodgers went into this. He may have been more arrogant. And a team like the Giants would have been like, if you're not making the decision now, we're making our decision now. I actually think the way that the offseason played out was not how Rodgers thought it would go. Because every team has pretty much solved their QB room, to me, except the Raiders and the Steelers. Those would be the two teams where I'm questioning what they're doing at quarterback, which makes me think that the Raiders are about to do something big. I don't know what, but I think the Raiders, they cleared.
You don't think they're happy with Geno Smith? I think you don't think they go one season with Geno Smith and then figure it out?
I think I think that's where Shedeur ends up going, because Brady and him have that relationship. And I think they traded for Geno, because even though it's a 3-year, it's really a 2-year. You let Shedeur sit for a year and then take time to work with Brady and then come in.
Yeah.
So there were rumors of a Geno extension coming when the Raiders got him.
Mm-hmm.
And the Raiders cleared cap space when they didn't have to. They restructured Christian Wilkins and they freed up a bunch of money. But they were already like $20 million under the cap. I'm having a hard time envisioning you're a new head coach and your solution is to extend Geno Smith. I don't have a problem with Geno Smith being the starting quarterback for the Raiders on week 1. This is like, I like Geno. I like him. But I'm saying, like, do I extend him, and why are the Raiders making these moves? Are they about to make a move for another quarterback?
That would be something.
Or they're about to make a move for a high salaried player. And I'm just trying to figure out which one it is.
The only thing, to be honest with you, the only thing I'm worried about with Aaron Rodgers, I don't think he's going to retire. The only thing I'm worried about is that because the Brock Purdy talks are dragging on, I could see them pulling the trigger and just saying, you know what, Brock, you're a 7th-round draft pick. We're not going to pay you $40 million. And okay, fine. Aaron, you want to come finish your career close to Cal? No problem. Come on home.
Well, that's what he's waiting for, right? He's waiting for a team to come out of the woodwork that is more desirable than the Steelers are right now, like the Vikings, like the 49ers maybe. And then he gets better. And he's going to wait, I think, now as long as humanly possible. And the Steelers haven't given him a deadline, like we've talked about a million times. So he can continue to wait for something to fall out of the sky.
He's so close to the McAfee guys. And I think AJ Hawk on Friday said he does not see this dragging into the draft, that the decision will be made before the draft, which, again, smacks of that April 9th show, live show in Pittsburgh, PNG Arena, or however you say it, and him coming out in a Steeler jersey. would be awesome if Omar was already there, because Omar and McAfee have a good relationship, and they just signed a deal right on the stage. That'd be awesome.
So
Whether it's the right move or not, who knows? But I mean, it's really the only move they got left beyond Mason.
Well, you're right. It's probably close to one of the only moves left. I've always, like, when we were examining what the quarterback market was wild card week. So we did on our podcast, we did a deep dive on the entire quarterback landscape. And one of the things we said is, well, are there backups that get traded? And like I threw out like Mitch Trubisky, right? And we have that in common, right? Because he's been with Buffalo twice. He was with Pittsburgh, right? So we all see Trubisky the same way. But if you're a team and you need to build a room, Buffalo has 4 QBs going into camp. And Mike White was on our practice squad, and we gave him a contract. Like, it wasn't a futures deal. We signed him to the active roster in the playoffs and extended him. Does that mean that Trubisky's out?
Could you trade him to Cleveland, please?
Right.
Pickett Trubisky reunion in Cleveland would make many Steeler fans very happy.
Right. So if you look at those teams where I said you need to build a QB room, like, there's probably a market when you're picked, like what Trubisky was like a 4th overall pick, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
When you're drafted that high, multiple teams like you. Multiple GMs, multiple scouts have said, we like this player. And when you're taken in the first round, you get a few chances. It's just the way it goes. Like, if Brock Purdy fails, he's going to get at least one more chance because he's done well.
Yeah.
But a first round pick, we're going to let him fail over and over and over again until we realize everybody else wasn't the idiot we thought they were.
Yeah.
Yep.
Actually, perfect example. Kenny Pickett is getting a chance to start for the Browns, because it doesn't look like, unless they draft Shador, it doesn't look like they're going to bring anybody in to compete with him. And if they draft a second quarterback, I have my doubts about Kenny Pickett, but I don't think a second or third rounder is going to come in and take his job immediately. He's going to get half the season.
Yeah. So if Cleveland doesn't go Sanders, they're going Milroe at the top of round 2.
Yeah.
Milroe's offensive coordinator in college is now one of the assistant coaches in Cleveland.
Interesting.
The same way that Chip Kelly from Ohio State is now an offensive coordinator with the Raiders.
Ooh.
So cue the Will Howard.
Will Howard,
Raiders, right?
Yep.
That's an interesting battle, because Brady and Sanders, Howard and his OC. Interesting.
Yep. So, yeah, and what was it? So the other one there to look for is Kyle McCord to the Giants. If you're following all those, one of Syracuse's offensive coaches was on Brian Dable's staff before.
Oh.
Right. So I follow the coaches, because sometimes coaches want their guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if you saw Jordan Palmer on Rich Eisen. I think it was almost a month ago now. He said Kyle McCord is the best quarterback in the draft, hands down. He said he's been grading quarterbacks for years now, and he's tested the best, according to him, since his brother Carson.
So if Palmer says that, I would take that seriously. That's Josh Allen's quarterback coach.
Mm-hmm.
That's where Josh Allen goes in the offseason. So between year 2 and year 3, okay, I will definitely say, as a Bills fan, I like when I was watching Josh play in years 1 and 2, I felt like I was watching like that crazy high school quarterback that maybe had a bender the night before, right? Like, he was doing something
earlier that day,
but it was not like I was not watching the second coming of Jim Kelly or Dan Marino with Josh Allen's first 2 years. I'm sorry. Like, that, I wasn't saying get rid of him, but I'm not going to talk about him like the he's not mortal, right? So now he's like superhuman, right?
Right.
that happened between years 2 and 3, and the person that did that was Jordan Palmer.
He's mentored a lot of quarterbacks, right? He's mentored quite a few.
And Josh Allen is not his only customer.
Yeah.
Correct. So a lot of quarterbacks go to Josh Palmer in the offseason. Josh tore down Josh Allen's mechanics, built him back up differently. And when we saw Josh Allen his third year, it was not the same quarterback we saw the first two. It was very fun to watch and to see the growth of the young man that we all now see as Josh Allen. But then, going from year 3 to year 4, it's like, can he do it again? And then once he did it like 2 or 3 straight years, you realize, okay, we have the guy. Yeah. But like, it's not automatic. Like, don't assume that when you see like a CJ Stroud who did very well as a rookie, or Jaden Daniels who did really good as a rookie, like, is Houston really that good? Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah. Like, is CJ Stroud on that pedestal? Or did Houston just take everybody by surprise and they're just the best team of a weak division? Like, imagine if Pittsburgh were in the South.
Right. Yeah, it makes a big difference.
Because you may have the second best quarterback of the AFC South.
Yeah.
With Mason Rudolph.
Right. Because we're comparing him to Will Levis.
Anthony Richardson, yeah.
Right. And then Trevor Lawrence. And yes, I said that. The second best quarterback in the AFC South is Mason Rudolph.
I don't know about that. He had a chance to be better than Lawrence last year. So.
Okay. Agreed. But we're on the right playing field here, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it just depends on what division a quarterback is in. And the fact that you have to play Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson twice a year is kind of that's a heck of a hill to climb.
It absolutely is. This division's brutal. There's no doubt about it.
Yes.
All right, let's switch gears to defensive tackle, because that's a big need for the Steelers too. We're thinking that most of the defensive tackles will be available. Kenneth Grant, I don't know if I'm on an island here, but his testing at his pro day was a little less impressive than we thought it was going to be. And I'm wondering if that pushes him out of the first round. Do you have him going high in your mock drafts, or is he still holding solid where he is?
I would be shocked if Kenneth Grant falls out of the top 15. Shocked.
Out of the top 15, really?
Shocked. Okay.
Well, that would put a monkey wrench in things for sure.
Well, no, it's hysterical though, right? So one of the podcasts I watch is Joe Marino and Kyle Krabs, Locked on NFL Scouting.
I watch that one too. I do too.
And they, like, Joe Marino says it really well, right? How is Kenneth Grant falling to 30 in these mock drafts? Okay. Well, with draft professors, we've got 52 guys that have boards, right? I see 52 mock drafts every week from everybody at Draft Professor. They're doing, mock 1.0, mock 2.0, and we're talking about where guys land. Kenneth Grant is not falling to those guys. He's true first-round grade. And we don't have very many true first-round grades. And you have to look at what the NFL values. So it's one thing to rack and stack a board. And you'll grade a player like Ashton Genty high, or Malachi Starks high, Nick Emmenwari high, Jihad Campbell high, Jalen Walker high. Problem is positional value. And everybody needs to take a look at like what Howie Roseman is doing in Philadelphia.
Yep.
And look at how he drafts. And we have a couple of Eagles draft professors, so they know how Howie does it. So they've come on and they said, here's the analytics. You only draft key positions rounds 1 through 3. That would be wide receiver, corner, defensive tackle, defensive end, offensive line, quarterback. That's it. So Nick Emmenwari, you're not going to be an Eagle. I would be like, if Emmenwari is there for the Eagles, I'd be shocked if he was the pick. Shocked based upon everything that they're telling me about. We only pick core position. So to flip this back to Kenneth Grant, he is a core position. Players like Jordan Davis, went really high. Okay. And Jordan Davis might be more limited than Kenneth Grant is on the field, even though Jordan Davis's testing numbers were off the chart. So, you know, we were doing big boards and stuff well before the combine, well before players run. The things at the pro days, I'm less focused on somebody's times. I'm actually more focused on things like the arm length and the hand size than any of the athletic testing, if that makes any sense at all.
No, I get it.
Arm length is a big thing. Yeah.
Arm length is definitely a big thing for especially defensive tackles and
right
tackles.
So, like, if I'm Pittsburgh, I think I guess I am more curious to see who goes first between Kenneth Grant and Derek Harmon and Walter Nolan.
Yeah, I was going to get to them. Have you heard the stuff about Nolan and some of the red flag stuff, character issues maybe? I've been hearing that might push him down a little bit.
So I've heard, I think one of the issues with Walter Nolan is that he takes himself out of plays, meaning he doesn't play within a defensive structure as much as he's allowed to be a game wrecker. And the rest of the defense kind of molds around him at Ole Miss. That was kind of how that worked, right? I'll take Walter Nolan if he falls to Buffalo at 30. That would be a duplicate skill set, but I'm going to take it 10 times out of 10 because that's a true first-round grade. And this is the key, right? We're dealing with a year where there's between 16 and 20 first-round grades. The number of true first-round grades is really low. Now, if Dave gives his first-round grades and I give mine, we're only going to have 16 or 20, but it's not going to be the same 16 or 20. Yep. But I would be shocked if Walter Nolan is not one of the top 25 players picked in this draft. It's a premium position. He plays it at a high level, and he can wreck a game. And here's a hint. Don't pass on Hall of Famers. I mentioned it earlier with Genty. But there are like superhuman traits that could make Walter Nolan elite to the point where he was comped to, who's the guy that just retired from the Rams?
Oh, geez.
Aaron Donald?
Aaron Donald.
Yeah, Aaron Donald. He got comped to Aaron Donald.
Wow.
Yeah, right? That's what I mean. Like, that was what was being said about him in November and December. Okay, that doesn't fall out of round one, right?
Yeah,
and part of why I founded Draft Professor is I wanted to get out of the media noise, right? Because I don't want to listen to other people's evaluation of the draft. I want to be able to have just a group of people where we trust each other's evaluations, that we don't have to watch all these podcasts about guys dropping or who's moving up or who's having a good pro day, because I don't know that pro days help with the measurables. What the pro days help is that Mike Tomlin got to talk to Jalen Milroe. Yeah. That's what helped. It's the conversation. It's let's say the networking part of things, because think about it this way, like Mike Tomlin and Jalen Milroe are going to be locked in a room for 60 straight hours during the week. Do you want to just draft somebody and see what they're like in that room, or do you want to meet them and get a feel for the type of human being that they are?
Yeah, that's a good point. There's no doubt.
That's the value of the Senior Bowl, the Shrine Bowl, the Combine. You're trying to figure out who these players are as humans because you're going to be spending a lot of time with them. Right. And it's just, are you familiar with their personality and their demeanor? Some guys tend to be more quiet. Some guys do tend to be, let's say, more outgoing. And you want to know who you're bringing into your building, because if like Eli Manning would be a great thing, right? Like if Eli Manning were available, do you want him to be the Pittsburgh quarterback?
No. In that draft, I would not have picked Eli Manning.
You would not have picked Eli Manning?
No,
Because-
I would have picked Phillip Rivers, full disclosure.
Okay.
Let's say I had the first overall pick. I would have took Rivers. Ben would have been my second choice. Eli would be my third. If he had fallen to me, I wouldn't have hated it. But I don't think the Steelers win 2 Super Bowls with Eli Manning. And I don't think he wins 2 Super Bowls against the Patriots.
Okay. And the reason why I bring up Eli Manning is that Eli Manning isn't the type of leader that Peyton Manning is, right? And they're brothers, right? This is the funny thing, right? They're brothers. Yeah. You know, if Peyton Manning comes into your building, he is the alpha of alphas.
Yep,
and even if he showed up in my house, like right now, and we're talking, he's in charge. That's just the way he is. But that's not Eli. So when you're building the Giants, you need that Mike Strahan or that Tom Coughlin to be the leader, because it's not going to be Eli. And this is what I mean by you have to know how a quarterback leads. Like if you're trying to figure out Milroe or Dart, you can listen to everything that they say about what somebody does on the field, but you have to know how they're going to handle the locker room, because we as fans only see them for 3.5 hours on a Sunday. But the amount of team chemistry that it takes to function Monday through Saturday, that's what you need in your quarterback. He needs to be that guy. And you can have a quarterback that has lesser ability, but as long as he commands that room, you're good. That could be the Steve McNairs of the world, right? Like nobody here is confusing a Steve McNair for whether it's a Lamar Jackson or a Joe Burrow. But Steve McNair, for the 2 teams he played for, he was always the guy, and everything revolved around him.
Yep.
Right. And you just need to bring in a quarterback that's going to be that, because if Jalen Milroe is like half of Steve McNair, is that success? I think it is. As long as he can lead the team, that's the key. He has to lead the team in addition to doing what he does in the field.
Yeah, I get where you're going with that comp, but I remember McNair at Alcorn State. There was serious Heisman buzz around him. He had one of the most decorated college careers. I just don't see Milroe in that vein. I see him as a poor man's Anthony Richardson.
Oh, agreed. I think McNair was a better prospect than Milroe is now.
Yeah.
But where I'm going with this is like McNair, I don't know that he was ever an all-pro quarterback. I don't know that even when he was playing, would we have ever considered McNair to be a top 10 quarterback?
Nope.
Probably not. But we knew who the leader of those Titans and Ravens teams were.
And that's the thing you hear about Milroe a lot is he's a leader. He's good. He's good in the locker room. You hear a lot about that stuff with him. And that's part of the reason why I'm I'm curious about that and that draft pick. And you're getting a plus athlete at the position. You're getting the best athlete at the position in this draft.
McNair was an all-pro once. He was a Pro Bowler 4 times.
Yeah. Yep. And I think that's a ceiling for Milroe if everything works out. I mean, he's got to improve on his accuracy. We all know that. And he's got other shortcomings. But I would prefer it like you, Bob. I'd prefer it in the 3rd or a trade down into the 2nd than 21st overall. But all right, we're running a little long here. Let's get to that simulator. This is really cool, guys. You fool around with this thing before we go for sure. So, Bob, you want to pull it up and we'll start?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Jim, you want to explain what we're going to do here? The 5.
Yeah, absolutely. Round? Okay, so this mock draft simulator at draftprofessor.com is unique in that the fans control it. So everything we're doing here, if we change who Pittsburgh is taking in round 1, every person that uses the simulator will be mock drafting against our picks. So we're going to do this thing here called the First Round Fanatic Challenge. I've got Pittsburgh highlighted. A first round challenge is 5 unique 1-round drafts. So we're going to go through 5 1-round drafts, and let's examine who the picks were. And every single one of these picks is the voice of the fan. So meaning fans are the ones that are using it and controlling it. So Ward, Sanders, Hunter, Carter, Graham, no surprises. Membu, Warren, Stewart, Johnson, Genty, Nolan, Harmon, Campbell, Loveland, Green, Grant, Izaraku, Emimori, Walker, Ikbuka. So you can see, if you look here, that Jade Barron's at the top with Trey Amos right behind and Jalen Milroe right behind. That's who fans are taking for Pittsburgh when they use this simulator. Okay? So if this is the way the board fell, who is the pick? And I think each of us is going to take a turn, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So
I think I'll go first. I like Jade Barron. I'm jumping on him. If that's the way the board falls.
Okay, Adam, I see you in the chat. You're not allowed to trade down when you do this. Okay. So it immediately took us into another first round, and it made sure that Jade Barron is off the board. Okay, what do we do next?
I'm jumping all over Matthew Golden right here. Give me Golden. I think he's a impact wide receiver, and it also gives us a little freedom if we want to move off Pickens. But if we keep it together, a top three of DK, Metcalf, Pickens, and Golden, I don't care who's throwing the ball. You're gonna move the ball and score points.
Okay. So it immediately took us into the third one, and it made sure that Barron and Golden are off the board before our pick. So what do we do if our two best guys are off the board? So we'll let the chat. Okay, so somebody says Hampton. Is Hampton here? So I saw Hampton in the chat from Somber.
Yep.
Somber.
Okay, so let's observe here. So we are the first to take Omarion Hampton to Pittsburgh. You can see he's ranked 43. He will not be ranked 43 when we're done. And I'll show you that when we get through it.
Yeah, Vaughn wanted Hampton too. So Hampton is the
Okay, so now it makes sure that Barron, Golden, and Hampton are off the board for us. What do we do? Any suggestions in the chat?
get there.
You almost have to just glance at the D tackles here, don't you?
Yeah, we haven't done D tackle yet.
So right now it's Tyleek, Alfred Collins, TJ Sanders, Darius Alexander.
Out of that group, who would you take, Bob?
Nolan,
Alexander, maybe.
Well,
Nolan, and Harmon, and Grant are all off the board.
Just out of curiosity, is Joshua Farmer there down the board? I wouldn't pick him in the first round, but I'm just curious if he's there, because then I'm rolling the dice that he slides to 3. Not to mention JJ Pegas, who the more I watch JJ Pegas, as much as I like Walter Nolan, and I think you're dead on about him being a first round talent, but if they sign Rodgers, I really think they'll draft a weapon in the first round. And if you gave me Pegas in the third, he's not a Hall of Fame guy, but I think he's a good 8-10 year starter in the NFL.
Okay. So I see somebody suggesting Darius Alexander. So I am going to do this and observe that he is ranked 52nd.
Yeah.
I like Darius Alexander. That wouldn't be bad.
I like Farmer a little better than him, but I mean, he's certainly a good player. I mean, wouldn't be upset with it. Just would depend where we got him.
Jim, how high are the tight ends going? I know you went over the list, but I wasn't. Like
So Warren is going on this simulator is going anywhere from the Jets at 7. And we've done mocks where he's fallen all the way to Houston and the Rams.
That's one that I don't think the Steelers can pass up. If Warren is on the board, man.
I don't think you can take him with the needs on the team. It's too much of a luxury pick.
So would you take Derek Harmon at 21?
I personally do not like Derek Harmon. I don't have him in my top 5 defensive tackles, but I know a lot of people do. So
okay. So I will take Milroe here and observe that Milroe is 13th on the draft board at the time I picked. Okay. So at the end of this, you get a nice, pretty picture with some grades. My mother will tell you that my grades never mattered. So the grading on this simulator is strict. Okay. So A plus means we picked the player at the top. C means they were beyond player 16. So they were 16 or further down. But let's go take a look at Hampton and Alexander on the Steelers board. So I'm going to go to the Steelers. So I went, by the way, I just did that quick. I went to team needs up here at the top. I'm scrolling to find Pittsburgh, and there's a player list right here. So this is the Steelers specific player board. 32 teams, 32 player boards. Every team has their own. So whatever draft picks you make are going to move players up. So one of the players that we picked was Hampton, right?
Mm-hmm.
He was 47th or 50th, and he's moved up to 37, right?
Mm-hmm.
Another one was Darius Alexander, right?
Right.
So he moved up to 40. He was at 56. I think he moved up to 40.
Mm-hmm.
Milrow, I think he was 11th, and he moved up to 10th.
Huh.
Where did how did Golden move up? This is by the way,
This is awesome.
This is really cool. Guys in the chat who are diehard mock drafters, this is a fun engine to play with.
Yes. So Golden went to 15. So let's try doing this one again. And let's see if we can get some more A's and B's. So if you can get 5 A pluses, that means that your brain and the simulator are one and the same. So your goal is to get 5 A pluses. And that's, look, it's my simulator. The likelihood I get 5 A pluses is really low. So I'm just letting you know. So I'll kind of explain how this goes again. So we're going to go through, we'll do this fast, but I'll explain the algorithm. So Barron is the top guy. That's your A plus. If the player you like is at the top, that's the same player the simulator is going to take when it's time to do the mock draft. Like, so if I were to do a mock draft for Buffalo, Barron is going to Pittsburgh. He's the A plus pick. Okay. So notice how Milrow is sitting up there at the top. So I'll go ahead and take him. So again, I picked him at the top. He's the A plus player. Okay. And if you wouldn't pick him in this order, then you're not going to get as many A pluses as me. Okay. Golden, he's 15th. So I'll pick him again there. You'll have to do a few of these to get your guys to go in the order that you want them to. So another player we did was Darius Alexander. And then
interesting that not one time has Nolan or Grant been available to us.
Yeah.
Oh, with the way that the algorithm is for the first round challenge, if they're the top player on the board, they're staying where they are. The randomness doesn't kick in.
Gotcha.
So if you were to do a normal mock draft, the randomness might kick in and then they fall.
Yep.
But when you're doing the first round challenge, it's designed for fans to implement their boards in the order you would pick the players. So somebody might pick Shamar Stewart and Mike Green, but a different team might like Mike Green before they like Shamar Stewart. So it lets you kind of build your own board. And then I think the other player we did was Hampton, right?
Yep.
Okay. So I got 2 A pluses that time. So you can come in and you can do a few of these. And if you're just getting 5 A's, you're doing pretty good. But if you can get 5 A pluses, that would be telling. That's very telling. So, like, for example, do you want me to show one where there's probably going to be 5 A pluses?
Sure.
Okay. So there's a few Bills fans that like this. So I should be able to probably pick every player at the top of the Bills card, unless somebody while we were podcasting came in and did something crazy. So Amos, yes. So Buffalo doesn't have a starting corner. So if our first draft pick is not a corner, I would be shocked. And then I'm going to go Thomas, even though I would pick Golden over Thomas just to show you what the 5 A pluses look like.
Okay. What do you think about Ravel?
Yes. I would take Ravel here if I were Buffalo. I don't know. I'm not taking him over Amos because of the injury.
Yep.
I may not be taking him over Thomas either. If Revel is the pick, I would just as soon trade down.
It's really concerning he still hasn't put a 40 timeout.
Well, so the issue is Buffalo's competing for a Super Bowl. We can't spend the first round pick on somebody like that.
Yeah.
Yep.
So these 4 guys are going to be the A+. Now, by the time we get to the 5th one for Buffalo, Pierce isn't the right fit. Not a fan of Scourton. I'm actually probably going to go Alfred Collins or Tyler Williams.
He's climbing. He was a 3rd round guy, and I have a feeling he's going in the 2nd now.
Who, Collins?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've mocked Collins as high as 16 to Arizona, and I have a hard time seeing Collins fall past Arizona in round 2. Mm-hmm. So if you can get your first round challenge to have that many A+, your board and the simulator board are meshed for round 1. And that's kind of the goal. Have fun with it, but it's also a game. And you are going to be making fans of other teams mock draft against your interpretation.
That's awesome.
Oh, sweet. So if I run a 7-round mock, the guys going before me are the basically the top 5 picks of what another fan base's draft board is.
Correct.
That's really neat. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
that's good
and
stuff.
it's a when I created the idea, the concept was the other simulators were too predictable. The same players were always there in round 5. It's the same players in round 6. It's the same players in round 7. Well, those parts of the draft should be a lot more random. So the more fans use the simulator, the more random rounds 4 and 7 are going to get. Like 1 through 3 will be moderately predictable. You can get players to move up, but you're going to have to, like, if you wanted to take Omarion Hampton from where he was on the board to get him to the top of the Steelers board, you're probably going to have to draft him in round 1 about 10 to 20 times. And if you're going to do 20 mock drafts, thank you. I love you. That's the whole premise. Okay? So
don't underestimate us, Jen. We do a lot of mock drafting.
Yeah, and for those of you guys who watch my mock drafts on Tuesday, this is what I'll be using this coming Tuesday.
Yep. And we do, like, if you guys want to come on, we're going to be doing a 2-round mock for every team on Thursday. So we're just going to load up all 32 teams, 2 rounds, and let's just have a discussion as to what we think those teams will do. We do that every week, and it's good to see other people's evaluation of the players because that's how I'm confident Kenneth Grant isn't falling to 30. Mm-hmm. When I do those mocks, enough people are putting Kenneth Grant, and I could make an argument that Grant could go at 4. I could make the argument he's going to be picked higher than Mason Graham. I could see him going at 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I can make the argument he's going to go at 13. He doesn't meet the Colts testing thresholds. He's not going to be a Colt. I can see him going to Atlanta, even though they need edges more. I can see him going here. Bengals need it. Like, every single one of these teams, I mean, you can argue that the Buccaneers have Vita Vea, but I wouldn't pass on Kenneth Grant if he's here. So I could make the argument that about the only team that's not going to take him are the Colts and possibly the Packers. And that's because the 2 teams that are the easiest to predict in round 1 are the Colts and the Packers. Because it's all like, if you don't test off the charts athletically, they're not drafting you in rounds 1 or 2. So if you want to know who the Packers are going to take, I can tell you we have draft professors that are Packers fans. They know the measurements. but it's going to be a player like Derek Harmon, Azare Thomas, Maxwell Hairston.
Yeah, he tested incredibly.
Right. And you're like, well, Jim, Hairston shouldn't go in round 1. No simulator has him that high. Well, simulators don't use things like athletic testing. They're just using a big board. Whereas what we're doing here is saying these are the guys that fit Green Bay. These are the only guys that Green Bay should draft in rounds 1 and 2. Let's set the Green Bay board up so they're only going to draft guys that Green Bay typically drafts. And that doesn't mean we're going to be right, but it just means that we can at least educate people as to here's who we think different teams are going to take. Right? Like, I'm curious if people knew that Trey Amos was a target for Buffalo in round 1, because some people say, well, he's a round 2 player. I'm like, Buffalo needs a starting corner, and he's more polished than most of the other corners in the class. Like, I would prefer Amos over Barron. But really? I think almost everybody has Barron as a higher rated player. But like Barron is a better player, but Buffalo already has an all-pro slot corner.
Yep.
Or are we drafting a player to put him in a spot where he's not going to be the best version of himself? Or is Trey Amos the best version of himself already a boundary corner? Right.
Good point.
So
and you know what? Honestly, so when right after the season, I was, hey, Ravel is the best. Amos is the second best. But the more, okay, he didn't run at the combine, and now he's not running before the draft. Ravel has to come off the board as far as I'm concerned as a top pick, because I mean, theoretically, yeah, I'm looking at him saying this is the second coming of Mel Blount, but now as he hasn't run, I just can't take the chance.
It's a lot of risk with him.
Yeah, it's
a lot of risk because that injury. A lot of risk.
Yeah,
but
Amos might be the very best outside corner with Ravel falling down the board.
And you can make pretty pictures. So if you want like a defensive line ranking graphic.
Nice.
That's
awesome.
You
can do those here too. And the colors, you can see the color codes here. I'll zoom in because those aren't showing up very well when I'm looking at the podcast. But this would be a round 1 grade. This is a round 1-2. So that's what that green color is. This color here is the round 2-3 grade. And then that magenta color is a round 4-5 grade. So
that's awesome.
You can build your own. And if you're capped at 5, just send me a private email and I'll bump your limit up.
Oh, nice.
So the default is you can rank 5. And then if I know who you are, you get more.
Sweet.
Nice. And this is something that I could play with for hours. And I'm kind of looking forward to it, because I was just doing the simulator. I didn't realize all the other stuff you had available. This is a lot of fun. I know Bob and I are like, we got to get on this thing fast.
Okay.
Playing around with it.
Okay, so I know that you guys said an hour. Like, do you have 30 or 45 more minutes? Because I can show you something that's going to blow you away, but it's not going to be short.
Yeah, let's do it. Why not?
Yeah.
We're going to cap it at 1:30, but yeah, we could try it. Let's do it.
We're going to do this thing called Draft a Team. We're each going to pick a team of 22 players from the rookie pool.
Oh, nice.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so Jim, was it Bob?
It is Bob.
And Dave. Thanks, Dave. Okay, so number 1 overall, I am going to go Kenneth Grant. Okay, Bob, who's the first player that you're adding to your team of 22?
Oh, that's interesting.
Any position.
And this is Steelers centric, or just playing a guy I think is the best
yeah,
player?
So you're going to have to build a team of 22 guys.
And now Mason Graham is off the board completely, so you got to take that into consideration.
Kenneth Grant is who I picked, so Grant is off, but Mason Graham is still here.
Oh, interesting.
I meant Kenneth Grant. I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay.
Well, I mean, I think Travis Hunter is one of the 2 best players in the draft, so I'm going to.
Okay. And then Dave, you're up for 2 picks.
Two picks. All right.
Yeah,
I'm going to
sure
take
at the term, we're snake drafting.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to take Abdul Qadir, and I'm going to take Ashton Genty.
Ooh, interesting.
Okay, and Bob, we're back to you.
I'm going to take the guy who I think is the next best player in the draft, even though he's probably going to be down the board a little bit, Nicky Minwori. Super high on him. I think he's a unicorn. I think people who look back that everybody passed on him. If it wasn't Hunter, then I think you made a mistake.
Okay, so I'm going to go with Josh Simmons, and I'm going to go with Armand Membu.
Oh, you took two
I
tackles
really
off
like
the board.
Membu. Yeah, I
You left
really
this high
like
and tackle.
Bob,
All right, I'm up. Am I up or are you up? I'm up.
No, I'm up. I'm thinking here. Let's go to the tight ends. Give me Loveland. I like Loveland over Warren.
Okay, Dave,
All
you're
right.
up with 2 picks.
I'm going to take Tyler Warren. And let me see here. Can you go back to the all screen? Do I take Mason Graham? I think I take Mason Graham.
Okay, and Bob, you're back up.
Let's see here. Can you show me the wide receivers, please?
Okay, so I see some comments about the rankings. So ultimately on this simulator, everything's a player list, and the rankings happen based upon people picking them in mock drafts. So if you're looking at the board on the site, I try to make it accurate, but the fans control the boards. So what the board on the site is less important.
Okay, and if you don't mind clicking over to the DTs for me. Give me Nolan.
You said Nolan?
Walter Nolan, yep.
You see, I got sniped because he was going to be the next pick. That was a good pick. I'm just saying. That's a good pick. Okay, so for corners, I'm going with my guy Amos. And I'm going with my guy Kobe Bryant.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah, so this also lets you can just pick your guys. Like if you got guys, go for them.
Yeah.
Oh, I know who my next pick is. That would be wide receiver Jaden Higgins.
Ah, that is one of your guys for sure.
I've been pumping him up since he was a late 3rd round guy on PFF, and now after the combine, he's a 1st round guy.
Yep. Sounds about right. Dave, you're up for 2 picks.
All right. Is Matthew Golden still out there?
He is.
He is.
I'm going to take him. And can I see the corner board? I don't want to get a corner here.
I think your favorite guy is still there.
Will Johnson, Benjamin Morrison.
Yeah, there he is at 6.
Yeah, I think I might take Maxwell Hairston.
Wow, over Barron?
Yeah, I might go back to Barron after. We'll see.
Yeah, I don't think you'll get a chance. But
Okay.
All right, so I am.
So this is. Oh yeah, this is Bob. I was about to go pick for me, and I realized it was still Bob's.
If you can go back to a corner for me for 1 second.
Sure. So you guys didn't even know what you were roping me into, and you invited me on your podcast. Like, I can keep people entertained.
You're gonna have us here the rest of the night.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go to running back. Give me O'Marion Hampton.
Okay. So I'm up 2 picks. Okay. So I got to get my guys. So again, I've got some guys. So I'm going to make sure I get my guys. Mm-hmm. So I interviewed Pooh Paul. So Pooh Paul came on my podcast.
Oh, nice.
So I'm always drafting him whenever I get the chance. And then My defensive lineman next to Kenneth Grant is going to be Mr. Alfred Collins.
I do like his game. I like him a lot.
Okay. Bob, you are up.
Oh, let's see. Which one of my guys do I want to go for here? Let's go back to the corners for 1 second. And if you can slide down just a teeny bit. Oh, where's my Iowa State guy?
He might be on the next page.
Yes, I think he is. It's my unicorn.
It might even be on the next page.
Wow, that's surprising. He's that.
Which guy? Well, again, it goes back with the order they were loaded. So who are you looking for from Utah State?
I think it's McCain.
Iowa State, you mean?
Yeah, Iowa State.
Maybe I don't have. Oh, Darian Porter.
Darian Porter.
That's the guy, Darian Porter. I had McCain on my. Yeah, that's a 6'3", lightning fast. Yeah, love that guy.
Dave, you're up with 2 picks.
All right, let's see. Is Derek Harmon still on the board?
Yes, he is.
I'll take him. And
And
since
then
you
got
guys
one more
left me Jade Barron, I'll take him now.
You did leave. All right, so let's take a look at the big board here.
Do you want Barron on the boundary of the slot?
I'll take him on the slot.
Okay, Bob, you're up.
Let's go over to the defensive lineman. DTs or DLs, yeah. Give me Joshua Farmer.
I like it. You see, you're beginning to say, hey, I know the guys I like. That's who we want. So that's the point of the exercise. Okay,
Yeah.
so I'm up. My safeties. So one of them was already gone. But I'm definitely going to do Xavier Watts. And then another player that came on my channel is Andreas Keaton from Temple.
Oh, nice.
I don't know if Keaton gets drafted, but if you get him, you're going to like him. When he hits you, you're going to know it. And he can play single high. So you're not going to hear too much talk about Andreas Keaton. But it was funny. He started following our podcast.
Mm-hmm.
We did some tape on him, and he's worth a watch.
All right.
Kind
That's
of thing.
interesting.
So
Definitely check him out.
He's going to be between round 5 and UDFA. That's where he's going to fall, but you're going to like what you see.
Nice. So who's up? Is it me?
I think it's you, Bob.
Yes, it is.
Let's go to, if you don't mind, go over to the guards. Oh. Well, give me Booker. Actually, no. Well, too late. I'll get him next round if he's there.
Dave, you're up.
All right, I got to take Jackson Dart. He's my guy. I got to have him.
And then you get one more.
I'll take James Pierce. I got Pierce and Abdul Carter as my edges. Your quarterbacks don't stand a chance.
Wait a minute. Go back to quarterback. Did nobody pick Cam Ward?
Not yet.
I just fall into Cam Ward. I'll
There you
pick
go.
Cam Ward.
See, and I thought, again, snipe, because I was about to grab Cam Ward on the other side of that. But you guys both have quarterbacks, so I don't have to worry about doing that. You both have running backs. I don't need to worry about that. You both have tight ends. Wide receivers, I got to get a couple of my guys. So one of my guys in this draft cycle is Mr. Ty Felton from Maryland.
Like him.
Our other podcast partner loves Ty Felton.
So we were on him early, and then I'm going to give a shout out to my guy, Randall. Okay, so Jack Bash. So our podcast,
Stauber's going to love you.
we do scouting reports October to December. Bash was on podcast 2. Randall, first time you ever saw him, says top 50 player.
Wow.
Nice.
You watch other podcasts that are more nationally known, they didn't even watch Jack Bech till he got a Senior Bowl invite. Like, Jack Bech is going to be a dude in this league. I'm just letting everybody know he's going to be a dude. I hope he gets himself a good quarterback.
I like his game. I just, in watching them, the guys, when I was going through and watching that conference, Higgins just jumped off tape to me from the beginning. And you could ask Dave. I mean, as soon as we started talking about the draft when the season was over, I've been on this guy consistently. I just really love 6'4" route runner. And when he ran that 4.4s at the combine, I was like, we ain't getting him in the third round anymore. He's a first round pick.
And just to let everybody know, like, because we podcast on the draft year round, we know that we're first on a lot of the players. We just don't know how to be loud about it, right? It's all about, do people know who the podcast channel is? But if you go to the Draft Professor podcast channel, you can see an 8-minute breakdown of two people discussing every single player here. So every player in the top 175, we've given at least 8 minutes of podcast time to.
Thanks.
Sweet.
So,
all right. So I'm up here. Let's take a look. Let's go back to the tackles for a minute. Just curious.
He's gonna snipe me now.
Connerly, Ursery, probably the two best available.
Let's go back to the guards. Give me Gray Zabel.
That's a good one. That's a good pick.
Again, you got to make sure you get your guys. Dave, you're up.
Is Kelvin Banks still out there, tackle?
He is.
I will take him.
And you get one more.
Let's see. What am I missing here? Best linebacker, Jihad Campbell. I'll take him.
Nice.
Okay, Bob, you're back up.
All right. Let's go to corner. Let me get another. Do I have enough corners? You need 2 or 3?
You will need 3. So you have Travis Hunter and Darian Porter. You need your slot corner.
Ooh, that's interesting. All right. You know what? He's a big slot, but give me my guy Ravel. We're just going to assume as the third corner, I could maybe throw James Pierre out there for a play or 2.
Okay, so do I have both of my corners? I have both of my corners. I have both of my safeties. I need a slot. I'm looking for my guy. Not on that page. Upton Stout, maybe, but I think Jacob Parrish. There we go. Jacob Parrish in the slot, and then, okay, we got to get a guard. Actually, Jared Wilson at center. Okay.
All right, give me my man, Torrey Horton at wide receiver. Love that guy.
I love it.
Day 3 pick.
I don't know that he makes it out of round. So he meets the Green Bay measurement thresholds. Don't be surprised to see him going earlier to Green Bay or a team like Indy that has strict measurement thresholds, because he meets or exceeds all of them.
Wow.
And again, that's the cool thing about learning how every team drafts.
Yeah.
Like, the boards just become narrower, and just because the simulator says they go in round 4, you find out that Green Bay likes him in round 2 or 3. They like Higgins better, but Horton would be a good consolation prize.
I wouldn't mind Higgins in round 3 either. 2 might be a little much unless there was a big run on wide receivers, to me.
Yep.
But that's interesting because you're right. Green Bay has a very specific type of wide receiver they like. It's interesting to know that he meets that.
And again, like, a lot of our content is not just geared towards the players, but it's trying to understand how every team drafts. The same way that, like, Pittsburgh typically doesn't draft a wide receiver in round 1.
Yeah.
It's learning those behaviors so that we can become predictive for how we think the draft is going to go.
Gotcha.
Am I up?
Yes.
I'm going to take Savion Williams. He's one of my favorite wide receivers.
I love it.
And I need one more tackle. Let's see. Charles Grant from is it William and Mary? I think is he on your
Yep.
board?
Okay, and Bob, you're back up.
Okay, so
You
I
need
need
two-
O-line,
2 tackles and a center,
tackle.
plus defensive line, linebacker, safety, and a couple of defensive flex.
Let's go to the safeties. There's a guy I like. I'm sure he's there, but I'm just.
Starks is still here.
Yeah, and truth be told, by talent, that's the right guy. I do love Sebastian Castro though. All right, give me Malachi because he's there.
Okay. Okay, I am going to get my slot wide receiver. Who do I want in my slot?
Well, according to RG3, it doesn't matter that Xavier Restrepo ran the 40 in 8.4 seconds.
So I am going to go with Ricky White, probably going in the draft somewhere between round 3 and round 4. At minimum, you're going to get your floor there as a special teams ace.
Okay.
So he's blocked, I think, what is it, like 5 or 7 punts in his career?
Oh, nice.
Oh, nice. I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
so you're definitely getting, with Ricky White, you're getting somebody who's going to be able to contribute on teams. So coaches are going to love him. Okay, and we're still back to me. I thought I picked 2 players, but apparently not. Did one of my picks go to somebody else? No? Okay. And then I'm going to start doing my edges. Shamar Stewart is still here. I got to do that. Bob, you are up.
I know. Roll down the edges just a little bit. I haven't looked at edge too deeply beyond.
We haven't taken too many.
Give me Oladejo. I know he's a mid-round guy, but I do like his game, and I do think he's a guy the Steelers would be smart to draft and stash.
Okay, Dave, you are up for 2 more picks.
All right, I need safeties, right? I'll take Xavier Watts as one safety.
I think I took him.
Oh, you took him? Okay. Who's the? Could you give me the top ranked safeties here?
So right now,
Kevin
Winston and Makuba are the 2 best ones left. Hunter Woller's here. Malachi Moore is still here. Billy Bowman, Sebastian Castro are both here.
I'll take Winston.
Jonas Sankar is.
And I need guards, right? I don't have any guards yet. Let's see. Gray Zabel's gone.
At guard. We
Miles
have Will
Frazier.
Campbell is still here. Jonas Savanea, Donovan Jackson, Marcus Bowe, Tate Ratledge.
I'll take Marcus Bowe.
Okay.
JJ Pegas as my flex.
And Dave still has 1 more pick.
Oh, okay.
No, I took Winston and I took Marcus Membo, right?
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't hear Winston. That was my fault.
Okay.
Okay, Bob, you are up.
Give me JJ Pegas.
Ooh, I love it. The defensive lineman that plays fullback.
Yes.
That's right. Yep.
Or you might say he's a fullback who pretends to be a defensive lineman. It really just depends on what you think of the defensive line tape. Okay. I'm going to do my guards. And the first guard I'm going to shout out is one of my guys. That's Luke Kandra. So when you're podcasting on a player and the family retweets the podcast while you're podcasting on the player, you immediately become one of my guys. Like,
very nice.
I can be swayed very easily. That's really what that comes down to. And then I'm also going to go Donovan Jackson.
Nice. All right. Let's go. This is tough. I still need a slot corner. Let's take a look at the corners again.
Sure. So Upton Stout, Quincy Riley.
Interesting that.
Stout's good there.
Give me Azarea. I don't. Well, hold on. Go up to.
Dorian Strong is still here.
Give me Azarea. I'm going to go with. I like big corners. I'm just going to clean sweep it with big corners. And Azarea, to me, we've talked about him on our podcast. We feel like he's a Joey Porter Jr. clone, and I wouldn't hate the idea when we had a second round pick if it was Azarea and Joey, because they're both long, kind of handsy corners.
Okay.
Jim, what do I have left to pick?
Dave, you need a guard and a center, offensive flex, a corner, a safety, and who's ever going to be playing over the tight end, whether that be a linebacker, corner, or safety.
All right. Luther Burden still out there?
He is.
I'll take him as my offensive flex. And can you pull up the centers?
Yeah, very thin center class.
Yeah, I'm just going to take the top guy. I'll take Seth McLaughlin from Ohio State.
I'll just take Zach Frazier and whoever.
Yeah.
Definitely not a position the Steelers need. All right, so I need another
center, offensive tackle, a linebacker.
Pull up the linebackers for me real quick. I haven't really. That's another position I don't see the Steelers drafting, but give me Jalen Walker.
Yeah, that's pretty good this far in.
Yeah.
Okay. So I need an edge. Okay, so who's the next best edge? Oh, I got my guy, Q Robinson. Okay, so I know I'm skipping over really good edges, but one of my guys is Q Robinson. So if you are not familiar with him, you may have heard the players that played in front of him. That would include Dallas Turner, Chris Broswell. He played special teams all those years for Alabama. He played this year 7 games. His production was through the roof, and then he got hurt. So when you're probably going to be able to get him in round 4, but he's like, he's every box that you check for like a top 10 NFL draft pick except the production.
Gotcha. Nice.
Yep. So that's my guy. Like, I like projects, right? He's the one that all the fans will talk about after you draft him. And then I'm also going to call out my guy, Sean Dolak from Buffalo. So one of the guys on Draft Professor, he is a scout for the University of Buffalo. So he actually had to scout against Darius Alexander because Buffalo played Toledo. But he sees Sean Dolak at work every day. So I'm definitely going to give Sean Dolak the shout out there.
Nice.
All right, okay. So what do I need here? 2 tackles and then still
a
need
center and a wide receiver, and your defense is done.
Okay. Center and a wide receiver.
And technically it's your slot. So you could put a running back, tight end, or a receiver there.
Ooh. Who's the let me see the running back board. I can get
Jay Blue would make a nice little
So the only ones that have gone are Genty and Hampton.
Oh, give me Trevion. I love Trevion Henderson.
Yeah.
Okay, so Dave, you are up. You need a guard, a corner, a safety, and who's ever covering the tight end.
All right. Can you bring up the interior offensive line? I'll get my guard out of the way.
Will Campbell sitting right there at the top of the board.
I got to take Will Campbell. Got to do it.
Yeah.
And
for our Steeler fans, Kate Rutledge mid-rounds, don't count it out. I'm telling you, 4th, 5th round, that name might get called.
And I
don't think Rutledge gets out of day 2. That would be my prediction there. But
do I need a guard too?
So this is Dave, corner, safety, or defensive flex. Who's ever over the tight end.
Can I see the corners?
There's some really good ones left.
Will Johnson is still here. Quincy Riley is still here. Zy Alexander, Za Frazier.
Oh, give me Za Frazier. He ran like a 4.3. I like speed guys. Give me that.
Yeah, like whoever drafts Frazier is going to love it. Obviously, he's a project coming from a smaller school, but all of his measurements and all of the athletic testing suggest he should have a pretty good NFL career.
All right. So what do I got left here? I got tackles.
2 tackles and a center.
All right. Let's look at the centers because that's save tackle for last. I don't think center and tackle is in their plans.
So I like Weston Franklin. That's a name that not too many people know. And then Monheim. A lot of people had as the original center one, but not everybody's as high on him now.
Give me Slaughter from Florida. I watched him play a little bit. I definitely haven't scouted centers, but I have seen him play. I like his game.
Okay, tight end. I'm gonna go. Oh, I'll be different. I'm gonna go Gadsden from Syracuse. I wanted somebody that can catch. Mm-hmm. And then running back. LaQuint Allen.
Ooh,
nice.
Okay.
All right, so I guess I'm looking at tackles.
So Connerly and Ursery are both here. Jalen Travis is still here.
Go to the second page for me. I haven't looked at tackles that much, but
yeah, there's not much on the second page. Holland Pierce.
No, don't like him. All right, let's go back to the first page, please.
Ooh, okay. So I just drafted and tackle my.
Oh, that's fine.
Slow. You got Caleb Rogers from Texas Tech.
Yeah, he's really good.
Dave, you've got your last 2 picks. You need a safety and who's ever going to cover the tight end.
All right, for safety, let's see.
Makuba, Wohler, Verdon, Malachi Moore.
Jalen Reed from Penn State, is he there somewhere?
He is.
I will take him.
Ooh, Sebastian Castro, undrafted.
Okay, and then you need, Dave, who's ever going to be put over the tight end. Do you want that to be a linebacker, corner, or safety?
Let's look at the safeties.
You can take Sebastian Castro.
Sure. Let's do it.
So you'll be in it'll look like when we do the graphic, it'll look like a 4-1-6.
It'll look like the Steelers
linebacker,
defense.
it'll look like a 4-2-5.
It'll look like the Steelers defense. We play 3 safety more than anybody.
Yeah, there you go.
So you want Castro?
Yes, I'll take it. Sure.
Okay. And then, Bob, this is your last pick. You need an offensive tackle.
Whoever the number 1 tackle is on the board.
We'll do Cam Williams.
I'm not going to fake like I know the tackles. Beyond like Simmons.
I need a quarterback, so I'm going Shadur.
Nice.
Not
okay.
bad.
So I will send these to you, but you even get a
Awesome.
pretty
Thank
picture.
you.
So I'll
That'll be
zoom out a
interesting.
little bit to try to fit that all on the screen. But if you look, so Bob's team looks like this.
Nice.
That's awesome.
And then Dave, your team looks like that.
Awesome.
So
Jim, this has been a lot of fun.
Does the yellow denote like the
That's
higher
defensive.
rated player?
It's offense and defense.
Offense and
Gotcha.
defense, yeah.
Never mind. I should have been able to pick up on
All right,
that.
Jim, this has been a lot of fun. We've gone kind of long, but this has been great. I mean, you guys got to check out this site, draftprofessor.com. This is awesome.
And we definitely got to have Jim back.
Yeah, we'll definitely have Jim back too. If he's willing to come back, we'll definitely have him back.
You guys can hop on my show too. So
yeah, that'd be fun.
Absolutely.
That'd be great. Guys in the chat, thank you very much for joining us on this live draft show as usual. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to go over to draftprofessor.com and subscribe to his podcast too. He's been a great guest for us today. And that'll be it. Bob, you got anything else before we get out?
No, remember we'll be back tomorrow. Tomlin has his press conference tomorrow, so I'm sure we're going to have a lot to talk about tomorrow.
I actually think he just did his press conference while we were on this podcast, so we'll have plenty to talk about.
We'll definitely still have a lot to talk about tomorrow.
Jim, you got anything else to plug before we get out of here?
No, I appreciate you guys having me on. Check out Draft Professor podcast content as well as the simulator, and I had a lot of fun, guys. So
all right, so do we. Thanks again, Jim.
Well, let's hit end.
Ain't nothing over till it's over.
What's that from, the 80s?
It's probably in the 70s.
This is disappointing as hell.
Now what the fuck are we supposed to do?
Yo, come back now, you hear?
Probably worth the Google.
Saw that coming.